Two of the Guardians' former top pitching prospects are helping them get back in track with a win in Arizona. They'll count on another one to help them wrap up the series in Arizona. We'll talk about what to expect from Parker Messick in Game 3 of this series.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being here with us. It is our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it is yours, too, because for the next half hour, we're covering your Cleveland Guardians, from the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between, and we do it every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. I'm Justin Lada. I have been co-hosting this podcast since October 2022, and for the past 18 years, I've been covering the Guardians minor league system for various outlets, including the News Herald, the Morning Journal, GuardiansBaseballInsider.com, and many other places.
I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On expanded into baseball 1,500 plus episodes ago. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's show your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts, as well as doing a quick shout out to all of our everydayers out there. Right now, when I look over at some comments I haven't gotten to, DB Collins and Dave Wendell right there as two of the everydayers that I can almost count, who I can't count on every single day.
Yeah, shout out to Dave Yoder, one of our insiders and our everydayers, for that artwork behind me there. Appreciate that. Some talented work there. That was a nice add to the collection there. All right, on today's show, we'll talk about if Tanner Bibee and the Guardians bats can secure a series win in Arizona. We'll touch on what Parker Messick can do for the Guardians in Game 3 as he's expected to make his Major League debut on Wednesday. And we'll talk about the Guardians and their Game 1 win with with Gavin Williams bouncing back in that first start of the series. Before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And that was a good start by Gavin Williams. The pitch count was a little bit high, if we're being honest, and I think Cleveland might have preferred him to go a little bit deeper, because I think the plan was the ideal plan. We'll talk more about Parker Messick in the second segment, but I think the ideal plan for them was to go with the bullpen game on Wednesday. Don't make a move, and don't start the clock for Parker. Don't worry about what's going to happen the rest of the year. But Gavin did not get that deep. He pitched well. He was very dominant in terms of keeping guys off base, but he ran up a high pitch count, only got 5 in the third innings. But I will say this about Gavin, and I did see a commenter say this too. I think it was Dave Wendell. He said, that shows a lot of growth for Gavin, that, he had the near no-hitter miss against the Mets 2 weeks ago. Last week his start was disastrous because he couldn't rebound physically from the extended start. And then he came back here in Arizona, and he came back and he gave them a chance to win, which is what this team needs, because they only scored 3 runs. And this is an offense that needs starting pitching to hold their team to 3 runs or less. And he did more than that in his start. So the fact he's able to bounce back and kind of keep things where they were before, I think is a testament to the growth he's had this year. As much as, the no-hitter was great, to see him, put that ugly start in his back pocket and just forget about it was a nice thing to see.
And he did against a tough team. Arizona, I know, had their ups and downs this year, and they've sold off, but doesn't change the fact that they are 4th in WRC plus, that they are 5th in total runs scored this year. It's still a good offense. That Arizona team is well put together. There's a lot of things they do very well, and it's a good offensive team. Defense, not so much. That has been a stumbling block for them. They have one of the worst. Maybe not fair to say one of the worst. They're definitely bottom half of the league in defensive WAR, but it is a good offensive team that, he had to sit there and face and produce. They're also tied for 4th most home runs in baseball. So he faced a very good offensive team and went out and, was it almost 6 innings? Wasn't it like 5 1/3, something like that? 5 2/3 and no earned runs. Like it's a great start. No other way around it.
Yeah, it's not a quality start. He didn't go the 6 innings for sure. So I think you would like a little bit more, but considering the pitch count where he was, he didn't let up any damage. And Arizona, they did sell off Josh Naylor. They did sell off Eugenio Suarez, but they still have Perdomo, who's really good. Ketel Marte is fantastic. Corbin Carroll's really good. Lourdes Gurriel's solid. The bottom of their order, kind of iffy. Pavin Smith and Adrian Del
Smith's
Castillo
got an OPS that'd be like 3rd best on this team. Blaze
Okay,
Alexander
well,
would be, better than most of what Cleveland's got offensively. Like they've definitely have some struggles, but they got a lot of guys who, they've
yeah.
got the big three, and then they've got some not dissimilar from Cleveland, but Cleveland doesn't honestly have a big three. They have a big one.
They have a 1.5, let's say. We'll count Quan as a half. When he does get hot, he's good, but it didn't really matter when, at least over the Braves series, when he was good. But yeah, it's a good line. It's a decent lineup, and it's also a hard place to pitch in too. That ballpark, the ball flies there. It's a hitter's park. There's a reason they built their team around offense out there, because it's a hitter's park. So for Gavin to flourish out there, and on top of that, he's going against Zach Gallen, who I know hasn't had a great year. And you want to be careful to say that Gavin Williams and Zach Gallen aren't facing each other, but they're pitching against each other. And Zach Gallen's still a tough customer, and the Guardians only managed 3 runs, so he was able to make that stand up. I said on Monday's show, Jeff, that if the team wants to make the playoffs, if they want to stay in the playoff race the rest of the year and play meaningful games in September, their starting pitching has to do it. They have to be a good rotation, because they don't have the kind of offense that is going to support giving up 4 or 5 runs a game. And, the bullpen's been good, except for over the weekend. There were some blow-ups, obviously, until then. Their bullpen also isn't as good as it was a year ago. So starting pitching has to fill that void. And they've had struggles. Gavin had his issue after the no-hitter. Tanner's had his issues. Slade Sconey's been bad his last 2 starts. Logan Allen is mostly consistent, but is not great. He's just good enough. So the rotation has to be good in order for this team to continue to get to where they are. And that's what made them win on. I know they scored the 3 runs. You had the home runs from Kayfus, the home run from Rocchio, and Jake McCarthy just took Tanner Bibee deep. So it's 1-0. Diamondbacks in the bottom of the third as we're recording this. But the starting pitching is going to have to keep them close in games to win if they want to continue to stay in this race. And that's what Gavin did on Monday in the desert.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you said, it's a hard place to play. Tanner has been very home run prone this year. McCarthy had a sub 600 OPS though heading into this one, so that is an unfortunate early going. But Gavin has been the race this year. There's no way around it. When I made that bold prediction in the offseason, I made it with the thought process that they'd have 2 really good pitchers at the top of the lineup, and unfortunately, that's not been the case. You've had Gavin. Logan Allen's had almost as many 3 stars as Tanner has had. So we're kind of waiting and seeing on how Tanner pitches the rest of this game. I gave him one of the 3 stars in his last performance with Tanner, and he hadn't had one since the Chicago White Sox series. Like, it had been a while. We're talking, 3 or 4 times through. So they really need Tanner to step up today. They need him to kind of follow what Gavin did. It was great to see him rebound, because a year ago and in the past, always felt like sometimes Gavin would go on negative stretches. And instead of a negative stretch, it was 1 negative game.
Yeah. For Tanner too, it's especially important. That home run by that cutter was supposed to be a backdoor cutter, got too much of the plate, and the next batter smoked the ball to center that Angel Martinez ran down. So it was a hard hit ball by Alek Thomas, but it was a nice catch by Angel Martinez, thankfully. But they need Tanner to go deep in this one, because nothing against Parker Messick personally, but they do have a rookie coming up who is supposed to make his major league debut on Wednesday in a tough pitcher's park against a good lineup like we've talked about. So the better Tanner can do on Tuesday evening against this lineup to go deeper and keep that bullpen rested, the better they'll be for it on Wednesday. So all the pressure isn't on Parker Messick to go out there and get 90 or 100 pitches over 7 or 8 innings and keep the bullpen. They do have an off day Thursday, which is good, so they can kind of empty the tank if they need to. But you want to make sure Tanner goes out, saves the bullpen, and puts Parker Messick in the best situation possible for his major league debut. We'll talk more about Parker Messick, what to expect from him, his rise this year, coming up on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. Maybe you want to go to the ballpark. Maybe you live in Arizona and you want to go and see that game last minute because a prospect is making their debut and you want to be in the stands. That is exactly where Game Time is going to help you out, because it's the easiest way for you to grab last minute tickets without the stress. And all that money you're going to save on your tickets, you can buy some other fun food items. I know Chase Field, I think it's still called Chase Field, has some interesting food items. So does Cleveland. Or you can buy some merch. You can bring some friends. Ballpark's always much more fun to explore with friends. Game Time makes that possible because they make buying tickets fast and simple, and prices always drop on the app the closer you get to first pitch. So you're going to get a good last minute deal. You can also get a good view of your seat, and you get the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. See the seats before you buy. Don't scroll just for looking for deals. Game Time Zone deal picks are going to do that for you to give you the best seats in the best section that you're looking for. Take all of the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Looks like Tanner recovered from that home run pretty nicely to get out of the inning. I know Angel Martinez had to run a hard hit ball down in center, but he got out of it. So we'll take the 1-0 there. His home runs have been an issue, but it's one run, and the Guardians kind of scored a win. So you can't expect your pitchers to throw a shutout or a perfect game or a no hitter, especially in Cleveland, because there hasn't been one since Len Barker. But we'll see how the offense can pick things up. Jeff, let's start with Parker Messick, though, and talk about what he can do for the Guardians on Wednesday as he gets called up to what we think is going to be his Major League debut.
You know, it's an interesting matchup. I was just kind of curious to go look it up. Arizona has the highest WRC plus in baseball, if you're curious, versus a right-handed pitcher, and against a lefty, they are 12th highest. So it's down to a 99 as opposed to a 116 versus righties. So they do have a pretty significant split overall. So you know you can see why they went with Messick, or a 17-point drop. So they're about almost 20% worse versus lefties. You can see why they decided to maybe make that decision to go pull Parker in particular. Especially when it became obvious they couldn't go the bullpen game. And let's also not, look past the fact that they are still trying to make the postseason here, currently tied with Kansas City, and Kobe Allard hasn't been good. So what you're getting with Messick is a guy who's performed really well this year at a park that is not, I almost said contagious, but that's not the word I want. It's advantageous is the word I was going for, towards pitching of any sort. And if you look at his prospects on page, which I pulled up, like almost everything is in the red outside of zone swing and zone contact. Like, the guys do make a lot of contact in zone. That is going to be kind of the concern, but he does generate some chase. He does generate some whiff. There's a lot of things going well under the hood that you're probably looking at more of a 4-5 type, I think. And you're hoping that, that he can keep that up. And let's be honest, this Guardians team has targeted left-handed pitching like Parker Messick because of exactly what I talked about at the very beginning. The disparity right now between what happens when teams face lefties, not even great lefties, just lefties, versus when they face a righty. A solid righty is easier to hit than a below average lefty. Like, that's just where we are right now in baseball. There's a pretty big disparity across baseball in terms of what teams do righties versus lefties. That is why we've seen Cleveland go with this market inefficiency of really loading up on left-handed pitchers. And that's what you're hoping for kind of with Messick to a degree. You're hoping for kind of an average-ish performance, and that the offense will show up.
Yeah, the offense does need to show up for sure behind Parker. This has been a tough matchup for them all week because Arizona is still a good team. And Parker Messick at least has the changeup that's going to help him neutralize any right-handers out there, which is why he is a good prospect, and he should have a chance for success against Arizona, who has struggled against lefties, like you said, at least in terms of relative to their success against right-handers. So the changeup, I think the best pitch for Parker is the changeup. Now, if you look at some of the plus stuff plus models, they'll say the slider, but I think the changeup is the second best pitch because it's an equalizer. Like he can throw it to lefties and righties and get outs with those, and it allows him to play off the fastball a little bit, which keeps guys off his fastball because he's not a hard thrower. Like, he only throws about 92 to 94. Increasing velocity was a goal for him. If you haven't had a chance to listen yet, I did put this out on social media on Tuesday, but I did say that we obviously talked to Parker back in March after his spring breakout start, and he could get the ball up to 95, 96 if he needs to. He doesn't very often, but he can get to 95 a little bit. So he has some velocity in the back tank, but I think it's going to help him with his fastball too, is also the approach angle. He delivers that ball at a very shallow angle to the plate, and that's what pitching really is all about. It's about angles. And if you have the tough angles that are to pick up, they're not going to square the ball up, and they're not going to make contact. So when you have that low release point like Parker does, that unique release point, it makes it harder to pick up. All the expected stats in AAA look good for him too, by the way. Expected batting average below 200, expected slugging below 300. So even if he's giving up some of he's getting hit in the zone a little bit, guys aren't bailing him up in AAA. They're not doing a good job of hitting the ball really that square. So those are all good indicators too, as you want to induce a lot of soft contact. If you're not a guy who's going to get a lot of swing and miss, but Parker does get a decent amount of swing and miss. The thing for him this year is his walk rate's been a little bit elevated for a guy who is kind of a control and command specialist. You want to see the walk rate a little bit lower for him, especially when he comes up to make his major league debut. That's going to be a lot tougher too. And getting deeper into games has been a challenge for him. That's something he's had to work on this year, is trying to be a little more efficient and trying to, use those 90 to 100 pitches and get him into the sixth inning or seventh inning, as opposed to coming out after 5. So that's still been a work in progress for him. Jeff, if you want to add anything in terms of pitchability and arsenal, we can. But if not, I think we should move on to the implications of the call-up and what it means for him and what it means for the roster the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit all the nails on the head. For those who are not longtime listeners, the change is a pitch that we like to say is, agnostic of if you're a lefty or a righty. It doesn't really matter. It works on both sides, where the slider, specifically in this case, is kind of a weapon to get out similar sided hitters. So for him to get that lefties out. So even though that is his higher rated pitch, his change is probably the one you're most going to have the largest impact, as it were, on his overall performance. Barring that, I mean, you nailed everything. No additional.
Yeah, and he should face a lot of lefties in this Arizona lineup too. I mean, Perdomo and Marte are lefties. We have Carroll. They'll probably play Tyler Locklear, and they'll probably play Jose Herrera. So actually, they'll probably see a lot of right-handers. So you'll see a lot of that change up in the game. The other thing that's interesting about this call-up, and I think one of our listeners, Colonel Chesbridge, pointed this out, is the cat is mad that couldn't say their piece on the show. Yeah, you're absolutely muted now because your cat broke your mic. Way to go. Way to go. That cat just completely broke your mic. But I was going to say, the interesting piece of this call-up is that Colonel Chesbridge brought up was that calling up Parker Messick, A, they have to make a roster move for him on Wednesday. B, if you bring him up and you send him back down at some point this year to bring Joey Cantillo back or do anything, you burn an option year as a slate on on Parker Messick. So Joey Cantillo was already in AAA earlier this year, and Slade Ciccone didn't use an option because he was down as a injury rehab, so he hasn't been optioned down. So you're saving his option. Do you want to burn, because Cantillo will be out of options next year?
Yeah,
Ciccone should retain his. Do you want to burn the option on Messick? I think that's why they preferred to go with the bullpen game but couldn't. You almost have to keep him up the rest of the year, no? So you don't burn that option?
I mean, I think in an ideal world, yes. But I think when you're looking at how it unfolds, I think they just got to kind of see where they are, right? Like, as long as they're still in the playoff hunt, if they have to make that call, then you got to make that call. It's not ideal, but, he's also not he's a guy who's back into the top 10 for both of us. We think he's going to be a good, not great player. But those are sometimes the guys who, in fairness, more need that option year maybe than other guys. So who's to say one way or another? But I think it's just got to see where they are and what they need. But I agree. This was an interesting call for that reason, that it just kind of forces their hand.
It does. I mean, he had to be added to the 40-man roster at the end of the year anyway. So, and they've done this in the past where they've brought up guys late in the season who are going to be on the 40, but a lot of times they've done that where guys are generally going to be up the rest of the year. And I don't know if that's the case for Parker. Like, you could, but you'd have to leave Cantillo down, and I don't even know if Cantillo's the guy you call back up because, and in September, you're talking John Means, right? He comes back. So if you want to call Cantillo back up in September and also have John Means, and you also want to keep Parker Messick, then you're talking
Heron.
Getting rid of Heron, but you're also talking about getting rid of like Colby Allard or Carlos Hernandez. I'm saying guy off the 26. Like I'm thinking it's going to be Carlos Hernandez.
Those all sound good to me. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah, I think those are all fine to me too. But I'm just saying, like, even if we look further out in September, you've got to make your decision on one of those because Means is going to be here. You probably want Cantillo to come back up, and if you don't want to burn the option on Messick, then you have to make some really tough decisions. And you can only have 13 pitchers right now. You can only have 14 pitchers in September. And do you think John Means is going to be one of them? All right. We'll talk more about Parker Messick. We'll talk more about Tanner Bibee and the Guardians and Diamondbacks in Game 2 on the rest of this episode of Locked On Guardians. Hey, you listening right there, you watching our radio faces. Appreciate you being here with us today and every day wherever you get podcasts, obviously, and making us part of your routine. So if you could, please make sure you are auto-downloading wherever you listen, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Overcast, anywhere else you want to listen. Make sure you auto-download because that helps us out a ton, and it makes sure you don't miss any episode in your feed, or you can always catch up if you're not able to listen the same day, which is why we try to make some of these evergreen episodes too. The Guardians are playing on the West Coast, and we can't record after the game. And as well as YouTube, if you make sure you hit the bell on YouTube, you get notified when episodes go live. You get notified when we post game recap videos, reactions, news. I'll probably post a video on Parker Messick at some point today as well, so you can look for that, as well as the MLB Squad show. And if you're so inclined, we'd love for you to be an insider as well at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Guardians if you want to get news like the Parker Messick call-up, or you want to talk during the game, or you want access to bonus content like giving us mailbag questions, or we had Jeff's draft data and we got our prospect rankings, all that kind of stuff that you can get over there on the Insiders Group. We have a lot of fun over there.
Maybe I'll send my submarine underwater first recording from Friday for Insiders if anyone really wants that. Insiders, let Justin know if you want the one that makes it sound like I'm recording with those poor Titanic people.
Yikes. Yeah, not great.
Yeah.
Tanner's done a better job since that first inning. I will say
he just had a triple, frozen. Right?
Yes, that is a fair ball. A 3-2 count. I will say Ketel Marte has had a heck of a time against Tanner tonight. Ketel Marte is not having a lot of fun with Tanner Bibee's cutter. That's been working out very well for him. He froze him with 2 cutters in the first 2 at bats. So that is a 1-out triple by Corbin Carroll. So this will be an interesting situation for him to have to dial it up and get Lourdes Gurriel and Pavin Smith second time through the order. But this is only his second hit allowed. And he's only allowed 1 walk. So this is the thing with Bibee this year, is that he looks good in certain parts of the start. And then there's always one inning. Oh, of course, Nolan Jones. I think Corbin Carroll triples anyway. But Nolan Jones had a hard time picking the ball up, so it didn't help things. But I don't think he was getting him anyway because Corbin Carroll's a good runner, and it was all the way out there. But Tanner has these outings where he looks good, and you're like, oh, that thing's fine. And then there's always that one inning where there's an error, or he doesn't get a call from the home plate umpire that could have been strike 3 to get an out or get him out of the inning, and then things start to go haywire. There's a hit, and then there's a home run or something. Like, he's just got to find a way to battle through those kind of things. And I got to think it's mentally tough on a pitcher who feels like they were showing the stats for the game. And I think we talked about this. I know I've talked about it with other people. Tanner's stats on 0-2 counts, like, he has some of the worst stats. Yeah, he has some of the worst stats in baseball against on 0-2 counts against hitters. Like, I think he's like 3rd or 4th worst in terms of batting average and slugging percentage and home runs. Like, for some reason on 0-2 counts, he is giving up way more damage than he should. Yeah, you'll take the out there, but it is a tie game. Oh no, the ball he's already out. The ball flew out, and hopefully Rocchio is okay. He just went down in a heap after getting run into. But it's got to be tough for Tanner, just like, seeing you're getting ahead 0-2 and then not being able to put guys away, and then having good starts, and then seeing the start just blow up after 1 inning.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is also just him. Like, we talked about, like, early on, he's just not hitting those spots. Like, he's not putting guys away. He kind of, is it sequencing? Is it just what's going on? We're seeing a lot more walks, a lot more of the pitch counts, go up with him. It's difficult because, the metrics probably show he's not been as bad as he's been on paper, but he's also not been as good as he was the first 2 years. Like, there's no way around it. Like, teams, typically after 2 years, you have a pretty good idea of who a guy is, but teams have figured him out, or players. I mean, they're just not chasing. They're not whiffing. It's all that stuff. All of his pitches just are not enticing the way they were in the past. It's weird. It's a very weird situation. I know a lot of people are getting very negative, but it's like, I still think there is enough of a core of what we've seen to have faith that it's going to at some point turn itself around. But right now, listen, it's not been fun for Tanner or for any of us, I'm sure, this year.
No, not at all. I think too he realizes that, and you got to. I think remembering too, he's also made a lot of adjustments throughout the year. We talked about this before. Like he's adjusted his arm angle, he's adjusted his mechanics, he's got new pitch mix. Like there's so much going on there, and it's just kind of hard to keep everything straight when you're doing all those different things. And that's been all of this bottled up into one thing. So Tanner's having an okay night. Nolan Jones could have picked up that ball. I don't know if he would have gotten Carroll, and then Brian Rocchio had the ball knocked out of his hand by Lourdes Gurriel. Thankfully, he was okay, but that, he was trying to throw home, so that allowed another run to score. Just, weird things. Let's talk about the offense for a second. Now, they have 2 runs because Jose Ramirez is a great base runner. He walked and then scored on a blue pit.
Santana and Jones, like we all expected.
Yes, and Santana and Jones drove in the run. So, Jones is 2 for 2 in this game. And it's funny because our plan to come in and it was to talk about the lineup tonight. It was, okay, we've got a lefty on the mound who typically, no matter who plays for Cleveland, he crushes them. Like the Guardians, doesn't matter who's on the team. Eduardo Rodriguez has been a tough customer for them. But you've got no Kyle Manzardo, no CJ Kayfus. And of course, Nolan Jones has 2 hard hit balls, 2 hits, and an RBI. But it's like, why does Nolan Jones play over CJ Kayfus against a lefty? Like, Nolan Jones doesn't do well against lefties. CJ Kayfus in the minors has, and he's your future. I don't care what you think about Nolan Jones in terms of his role, but he is not part of this team's future long term. And I think Kayfus gives you a better chance to win today. I think it makes sense to have him going forward against lefties to see if he can do that. I think at the very least, like I understand having Fry in there because you're still trying to make that happen and get him back to where he was a year ago. I can even understand Santana to a point because in the past he's been better against lefties, even though it's been a pretty bad year. I would rather have Santana at first and Manzardo DH and Kayfus in right field, but I at least want one of Manzardo or Kayfus in there. So which that means you have to have Fry DHing, which means you have to have either Kayfus playing first or Santana playing first, and then Kayfus playing the outfield. But one of those guys should be in there. Am I wrong? Like I think at least one of those guys has to be in there. Lefty or not?
Yeah, I think it makes more sense probably. Here's the thing: they want to play Fry, so Fry, you kind of want him to DH. So it stinks. Like Manzardo
can DH.
Yeah, because that's all he can do. It's like Manzardo is a bad defender at first, so it kind of sets you up with this net negative situation at that position. Because Manzardo has been a below average bat for his lefties this year. Like it's close to average. But. So it really is that situation, though, where, again, Nolan Jones offensively has done what, and there's a hit by pitch. Again, just the command is not there for Tanner this year. It makes more sense to let Kayfus play. Like, I don't understand. Jones is just, I talk about off air often with you. It's like on a team that was healthy, Jones and Martinez have really no business being up with Martinez had about 3 good weeks, and the rest of the year has been lost, and Jones had a good month and a half, and then the rest of it's been terrible. So those 2 guys really aren't contributing or helping. So I personally, if you're gonna play Fry,
by the way, that ball did not hit Alexander. I'm not going to challenge it, but that ball, look at hit the knob of the bat. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Well,
it's still inside. Yeah.
It's inside. He gave a single before that. That's 4, 2 hits and a hit batter in this inning. It's still the not as sharp Tanner we're seeing this year either way. But it's like that situation where, yeah, it makes sense to play Kayfus at least, or if you're gonna gamble with the defensive downgrade, then you let Manzardo play. But right now, personally, I know they need to let Fry play, but he has been so up and down himself that I wouldn't have Fry play versus every lefty. I'd rather have Manzardo in there, and I've been calling it for it all year, and Fry had a good month of July, but still, I think Fry makes more sense getting his reps in AAA, because this way you get Manzardo and Kayfus every day. That's just my view.
Yeah, and I don't think, are those guys going to hurt you against lefties? Maybe. And I know you're still trying to balancing winning this year and building for the future, but that's no different than what the Guardians do every single year. They are always trying to get into the playoffs each year and also develop for the future. That's just the organization they are. So it makes sense to, again, at least have one of those guys out there. So you're accomplishing sort of both of those goals, even though some of those things don't always intersect the best. You said Nolan Jones had a month and a half. Can we also say Nolan Jones in that month and a half, we could say he was good in the context of how bad the offense was? Because all he did during that month and a half was walk. Like he
It
didn't
was an
hit,
average bat, which on this
didn't hit
team is good.
Right. And I'm saying it's in the context of the team, which has been a bad offense at that point in the year. And now they've been better, and he's not helping them until, tonight. But in terms of what you acquired Nolan Jones for and what you need to win, he's bad because he's not hitting for power. His only skill on offense is he hopes to take enough pitches to walk. And then on defense, he has a great arm. Those are the only two positives. Everything else is a net negative with Nolan Jones. And I understand what you're saying. Like, he was good for that month and a half because on this team, that stretch of him being an average bat was good. But if you frame it in the context of what you traded him for and what you expect, what you need from him, it's a failure.
I mean, I think for me personally, I just think with as bad as this team's been, you're just hoping for average. So if he could have been average, no matter how he does it, it's not a failure. Because I think it was not all about power. I think one of the big things we talked about too was like someone who's going to take pitches, and that was a big part of their new approach. So it's like yes and no.
So he delivered on half the promise, I guess. Then, but the problem is it only was really consistent for a month and a half, and the rest of it's been
that's the bigger issue.
He delivered on what you asked for, half of what you asked for when you acquired him for that. All right, so it's 2-2 Guardians Diamondbacks, the bottom of the fourth inning. We are going to dip out of here on this episode of Locked On Guardians. We will recap all of Game 2 for you and break that down on Thursday's Locked On Guardians, and we'll also talk about Parker Messick's Major League debut on Wednesday as well. And Jeff, we're finally going to have that conversation. Should the Guardians call up Travis Mazzana? Not will they, but if they should, if it makes sense. So we'll talk about that as well on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll have a good discussion there. It's now the top of the fifth. We got a nice called strike there for Tanner. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps set to auto downloads. Leave those reviews wherever it is that you listen. Thank you all for joining us, and go Guardians, go.